The dad, his little girl, the boat, the kids in the neighborhood, and the problem-solving entrepreneur. When I was 6, at the beginning of their separation, I had moved, I think, 3 times already. Actually 5, I think. But finally, there was a house I lived in, and I would wait on Saturday mornings for my father, who was a doctor, a physician in Hamilton, Ontario, to pick me up. And I would wait for hours and hours because, as most of you know, a doctor's schedule can't be perfect. As well, he was sick at the time, and I knew about it because before the separation, he told me, with music, because before kids are 8, they can't figure out, because they have magical mental capabilities. They're not able to conceptualize what death means. So he made me memorize, and he kept playing over and over in the house before, where everybody lived together, these songs. So when he came on one of the first visits, he brought me this big metal boat. And I was only 6. And I got in it. It had a passenger side and a driver's side. And I got in it. And I could paddle it, and had wheels, and it would take me around the whole block. And where I lived in Hamilton, it was a big block. And back then, you could go out by yourself. Apparently, anyways, I did. And as I would pass different houses on the street with kids, lots of kids lived on the block, of course, they'd run out and say, please, can I have a ride? And eventually I was like pumping, and kids are jumping on all the way from 2.5 years old. And they would be hanging on the back and like on the front of my boat. And I was thinking, oh my gosh. And then like the little ones would fall off and the parents would be like, oh, are you okay? And I thought, okay, this has gone on for a week. My legs hurt. My dad's going to be mad when he sees the wear and tear on the boat. I have no funds to pay for the wear and tear. How am I going to explain it to him? He's going to be disappointed in me. And we had I'm definitely daddy's little girl. And when our eyes locked, I even have a picture of it, his smile from the side and eyes penetrated into mine and mine back. And both of us had the biggest grin when we looked at each other. So when he was upset, all he had to do was just look at me, and mouthy me, chatty me would be like crying practically. So anyway, I thought, these kids are falling off. Their parents are worried. What do I do? I'm never getting the enjoyment of riding this bike by myself since I got it. I can never even, doesn't matter what time I took the boat out, there were kids lined up at every driveway on the whole block. So I decided I'm going to charge 10 cents a ride. I'm going to approach the parents and let them know why. Reasons of safety for their children. Reasons because I only have one seat beside me, and that is the safest way to ride kids that are 6 years old and under on my boat. Number 2, they get to tell me how fast to go. So I will go fastest or slower or medium, depending on their wishes for their 10 cents worth. They get the whole block all by themselves, not being tugged at, yanked off, or thrown off. The parents were more than happy. The kids didn't know about it yet. So the day after letting all my neighbors, like their parents know, I went out with my boat, and they were already standing there all lined up on their driveways with more than a dime each. And so there I went with the first house. One at a time, I said. Their parents already had them have more than one dime, and I had to call it quits once I'd done so many times around the block. And I lived in Westdale in Hamilton at that time. And that was pretty much my first job. I'll tell you about my actual first entrepreneurial 2 jobs before that. But that was my that was my 3rd job already. And that's the story about a father who loved his daughter with all his heart, always spoiled her, always gave her all he could, was hardly ever there, but when he was, He was full on, work hard, play hard, driven as I am throughout my life, and always good with kids. Not to mention a kind doctor and a hard-working but very ill father who was doing his best at the end of his life to fit in as many outings as he could with me, which I will talk about another time. And the story of the beautiful boat that I can't even find on any website. I could only find a car that you drive, but who can beat a boat with wheels? I love you. Thank you for all your love.